Those decks are a little bit different than Clonet's, but pretty much the same type of lineup when you get down to it.
Yeah, it's really interesting to look at the lineups that have prevailed towards the end stages of the tournament they're complete polar opposites in terms of how they function. It's been the very aggressive decks, which have mostly been doused at this point, or the decks that are somewhat targeting slower matchups. How does that work?
I don't know.
What happened to the aggro decks?
But at the end of the day, Europe reigns supreme. That's just always how it works. Guaranteed to have a all-European final, and guaranteed to have a second European champion for 2 seasons in a row. If they sweep the whole thing, man, the other regions have a lot of work to do to catch up.
It was awfully close for Asia Pacific, almost having a tremendous breakout performance here with Mage and Citizen Napa coming out of nowhere, really, to put themselves on the map. So close and so far away. Neirea, pretty reasonable opener here. 2 bounce effects alongside a Swashbuckler. Swashbuckler, I think, one of the more effective cards in this matchup due to the nature of how good Shaman cards are versus Shaman decks.
They're usually pretty good. It's one of the reasons why when you see 2 Shaman decks go at it, it's a very grindy matchup. Kind of ridiculous at times with all the evolves and devolves going on. But yeah, he's got the power to go through the early board. With the Shadow Ship drawn, it basically says, hey, you're all in on this one. Stormcraft, not bad.
It's pretty darn good here. Stonehill Defender is actually one of the more effective cards versus Quest Rogue due to the nature of their minions. A lot of 1 damage effects across the board. It typically ends up being a big road hunt. In this particular spot, however, that Stormcraft can make quick work of it and allow Neirea to continue to contain Kolento's board. That's a very important facet of this matchup, because where Neirea falls down to this matchup is when the board state grows out of control. Think Bloodlust, think Flame Tongue Totem. Even just Evolve. A lot of ways for Kolento to make his board more difficult to interact with due to the power and the health of the minions. It's very important that he keeps the board restricted.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. We saw Shaman throughout the group stages dominate in the win rate department. You know, going into sort of the second half of day number 2, Shaman was almost at a 60% win rate. But going into today, we haven't really seen Shamans do well against Quest Rogue. Another Swashbuckler drawn. He already had enough bounces to be able to finish the quest. This just makes it that much easier.
And this is one of the better Quest Rogue draws that I think we've seen throughout the course of the weekend. For the most part, players have been operating on a much more honest curve, having to really battle for these early stages, but Neirea has strict control over this board right now. And I'm not sure Kolento is going to have much more time in this one. He has no board and very little utility to work with.
So a little bit of information gained here from Kolento, I think. Because of the first bounce on the Swashbuckler, Kolento can probably guess that a second Swashbuckler was drawn. Otherwise, he probably would have tried to protect that Swashbuckler and not played it and bounced it instead or something along those lines.
Yeah, why would Neirea risk it if he hadn't drawn second Swashbuckler?
Yeah.
But how valuable is that information? I think when he bounces the Swashbuckler the first time, a lot of times Kolento can infer a lot about his hand anyway. And so the question is, how does he race against quest progress? And the answer to that was, well, he gets some minions on board, but it's very unlikely to happen in this state. I would imagine that going for the Maelstrom Portal here is definitely in the forefront of his mind, because delaying the quest progress is probably his best bet at this stage.
Gonna try and load up the board. That's all he can do at this point.
That's a great card in this matchup as well. Again, Kolento needs board presence to take advantage of those sweeping effects he has, of the Evolve, of the Bloodlust, of the Flame Tongue Totem. If Neirea is able to couple that with a preparation, that's the major swing that is almost unrecoverable. We saw it last match with Boy versus Ant. He got devolved into all Wisps. Boy drew Vanish. Vanish was such an impact at that stage.
Neirea draws White Eyes. Not that great. It's going to be a 5/5 anyway once the quest completes, and this one costs 5 mana.
Yeah, but it puts a 10/10 in his deck, TJ. And once he completes the quest, it's a 5/5 as well.
That's funny to me.
It's funny to me. It's easy to make me laugh, though.
I know.
I don't have high expectations. Especially not of you.
Hey.
Love you, Teach.
Neirea holds on to the Swashbuckler in order to make sure that he has a guaranteed 5/5 on board next turn when he completes the quest. Values that over just having an extra shaman card to evaluate and having the 1/1 on the board now. Very smart play.
I think it's really important to be able to maximize the stats on that. I mean, this turn it would just simply gotten chewed through, and Kolento would have a significant lead at that point. While he does have a lead right now, the fact that Neirea makes it a 5/5 instantly, I think gives him a much better position. And Kolento has Doppelgangster evolved, but we see the Vanish waiting in hand for Neirea. Now that being said, the Vanish won't allow him to actually add additional board presence outside of that. So this still could be trouble for Neirea. I mean, Kolento's just drawn Bloodlust. This is a lot of board impact he's going to make. I mean, I imagine this Doppelgangster Evolve forces the Vanish from Neirea's hand. So if he doesn't draw exactly preparation, he might not have time to really make use of these tools.
Could be in trouble. You're right.
This boils down quite literally to that Maelstrom portal that Kolento let rip. It was a pretty weak-looking play, but it delayed Neirea just enough that it's led to this board state. That one single play.
Now Kolento sets up lethal with the Bloodlust and then some.
Doesn't even evolve.
Well, he doesn't really need to. Why risk it?
I agree.
Lethal next turn regardless, even if one of these 2/2s gets cleared off.
So the question for Neirea is, does he want to deal 5 damage, or does he want to clear out one of these minions prior to Vanish? It's going to put too many minions in Kolento's hand to start with. But how does he come back after this? No charge in hand, no taunt in hand.
Well, he does have white eyes.
That's a 5-mana taunt, though.
5 mana.
Think of the Bilefin.
That'd be good.
Bilefin would be a pretty nuts draw for Neirea next turn.
This matchup is just really tough. We've seen Quest Rogue win it in our last, what, 2 series?
You think
at least in the quarterfinals, but even when you have a good start like this, where he's able to complete the quest on turn 5, you still need a lot more than that. You need taunts. You need a way to sort of come back in the game once that quest is complete, because usually the shaman's going to have a board.
My hand is too full.
Indeed it is.
Doesn't really matter.
Now he's got 3 Doppelgangsters. They all summon. 2 of them have different art, though.
No.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's got, like, the tentacles for a beard. It's kind of weird.
That's funny to me.
If I had tentacles for a beard, I would not be very happy with it. Kolento going to go ahead and drop the Bloodsail Corsair here as well. Even in worst case scenario, say he got Corsair from this evolve, it's not the worst thing in the world for him, because he's in almost the exact same position where the board resets for him. He's able to simply redevelop and threaten the Bloodlust again. So at this stage, just the most stats and threatening Bloodlust as often as possible is his main goal.
Is there a way out for Neirea? Mimic Pod into Bilefin Tidehunter.
I was looking at
enough taunts in the way.
I was looking at Swashbuckler into Volcano as perhaps an out. It's going to be Swashbuckler into something if he's going to win, though. And that's not it.
No. He is dead.
It's a lot of damage. Ancient Harbinger. No draw. No 10 drop. Crowd going nuts. Kolento, the massive fan favorite. Quick 1-0 lead.
Every single one of Kolento's series throughout the Spring Championship has gone to a game number 5, and 2 out of those 4, he was down 2-0 before he came back. So a 1-0 start for him. If he can come back from a 2-0 lead, I hate to see what he can do with a head start.
Whew. How much pressure is off of him now that he's made it back to the World Championships? I mean, I imagine that had to be weighing on his mind.
A little bit. I think pressure is off from a lot of these guys. Just because when we talked to them, a lot of them said their main goal was to make it to Worlds, but their secondary goal was to win the whole thing. The only player that didn't say that was Hoy. He said while Worlds is a goal, he goes into every tournament, especially this one, the biggest of his life, with the intention of winning the whole thing. And he's sitting pretty in the finals waiting for one of these guys.
Look, Kolento's just chilling. To be honest, he looked nervous in a lot of his matches. You can see his brow furrow during the focus. During the match versus Mage, you saw him peel his glasses off and rub his eyes. I mean, he's had some stressful matches this tournament. I mean, even in the one versus RDU, he needed that draw towards the end to make it there.
One draw or he was done. Correction from earlier, we had an error on one of the graphics. Kolento actually had one matchup that didn't go to game 5. Just makes it scarier, because that was one where he got off to a pretty good start.
Yep. Yeah, he looks much more calm to me.
Said it earlier, something about China. Kolento won a tournament in China just, what, 2 months ago?
That's right.
And that was after sort of a year, a kind of a slow year for Kolento. I think he took a little bit of time off from competitive play last year, focus on his stream. But even through all of that, still had high finishes on ladder.
Yeah.
Still had a rank 1 finish in 2016.
Really just had some brutal tournaments in there. I mean,
yeah.
It was a lot of strings of Kolento exiting the tournament early. And that was something you never really expected to see was that happening. And it felt like it kept happening. Well, he's back, boys. And that's not a good draw for Neirea. He is playing Jade Druid, not aggro Druid, so not really much beast synergy here. That guy's going to chip for as much damage as he can. But we've seen Kolento win this matchup, and frankly, it is not very favored.
No, Jade Druid has favored matchups against most control lineups. And Taunt Warrior, while it's a little bit different than most control decks, it is still a control deck.
Neirea's opening hand is just abysmal as well. We saw Kolento actually throw away 2 fiery war axes in the opening hand. It's not a very strong card in this matchup. Oftentimes, the early Jades just don't matter that much. And secondarily, it just doesn't fight the rest of the minions in the deck that well. I mean, think about Jade Behemoth. Think about Jade Spirit. Chop down half of it, the other half's still there. He wants to find his card draw. He wants to find his taunt mechanisms. He wants the security of execute.
Speak to me.
This Acolyte is a major threat to Neirea right now. I think he's got a Wrath.
Kolento's got to be really happy to not see Ramp coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Hero power and 1 damage from the Hungry Crab on turn 2 is a very pleasant sight.
Just seeing the Hungry Crab is a pleasant sight.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess it's better turn 1 than draw him later on in the game, but...
Sure. I'd rather just get it from the Curator, though. Just never actually see it.
True.
This matchup boils down to how big a turns Neirea can get towards the later stages of the game. It has very little to do with how strong he opens on minion pressure. So I'm actually curious if he's ever even supposed to play the Crab due to the threat of Acolyte of Pain. I mean, there is 2 copies of Acolyte of Pain in the deck. We've seen a lot of players cut to 1 copy of that card, but Kolento has demonstrated time and again the importance of the card draw in this matchup.
Crab's dealt 2 damage so far.
He's looking for a 3rd.
Not going to find it. mean, this has to be for draw, right?
There's not a chance. It's 3 straight up.
Ooh.
More utility. I'm thinking Nourish has got to be the best draw at this stage for Neirea.
Kolento's still got a long way to go, though. He's got a lot of the utility cards in his hand as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, the ideal situation for Kolento in this matchup is he's able to finish quest at a fairly safe life total, and with enough utility in hand that he can forego having to fight for board, just rely on killing big minion after big minion and start directing damage shots to face. Set Fiery War Axe go. Results in a snap ooze for Neirea, who I'm sure is happy to make any use of his hand at this stage. This is looking like it's going to get worse and worse.
Kolento still needs to find a little bit more gas on the taunts front. But with Slam, Acolyte of Pain, double whirlwind effects, he shouldn't have too much of a problem with that. Wild Growth.
And this is probably the toughest turn to draw Wild Growth, is right here.
Right in the middle.
The ramp could still be useful, but it's a long time to wait for a draw. Patient as ever.
You gotta be.
It's one of the biggest strengths I think we've seen this weekend from the European region is the amount of patience they've shown in some of their games. I think back to the Hoy game where we were backstage watching it. He just refused to bounce a swashbuckler.
Hey, speak to me.
Sottle said, most patient man alive. Drew Novice Engineer, the Novice Engineer fueled the rest of the game for it. Neirea doesn't really have much of an option. It's an Auctioneer, but I think it's got to get fired off in this spot. His hand is just so weak.
He can get a lot of draws off it. Adds in Auctioneer, Innervate, Earthen Scales, and Jade Idol. So that's 3 cards that he can draw. Can also pick up second Innervate, second Earthen Scales.
The problem with it is he doesn't have a board to really fight with. If he had something fighting on board right now, it means this Auctioneer would put Kolento in a situation where he has to respond to it. In this spot, if Neirea played Auctioneer, Kolento very easily responds to it, just simply his board presence. And so because of that, Neirea is going to look for a more favorable spot, maybe pick up some extra cards to dig very deep into the deck, because the second Auctioneer is the extremely important one. That's one Neirea cannot toy around with. If he uses it too early, Kolento can kind of go on autopilot and cruise control that victory.
We saw it in one of Kolento's matches yesterday against Trunks. In this very matchup, it seemed like Trunks used his second Auctioneer slightly too early. And that caused Kolento to just be able to outvalue him as the game went on. He decked out Trunks. He decked out a Jade Druid because he used that Auctioneer too early and couldn't shuffle fast enough to get there.
Second Jade, he shuffled the first as well.
I mean,
I like the shuffle here. He just wants to draw 1-cost cards. Try to build up a big hand and go from there. I am a little bit surprised he ripped the Auctioneer here with the swipe draw. Had great use with the ooze this turn and would have had the Wild Growth to activate it on the following turn. But with not really much to add to the board, I imagine that was his main concern.
But at the moment, he's got 3 extra Jade Idols in his deck. And at this point, I don't know if his Jades are big enough to warrant him feeling good about a Jade Idol draw. Next turn, he can go double Jade Spirit, which will get those bad boys up to 4/4s. But man, this board is starting to get a little crazy. Kolento over halfway done with the quest. Well, that's pretty good. But again, second Auctioneer, so important. We're probably not going to see that for a while.
Cannot mess around with this Auctioneer. If he rips this too soon, he's going to face the consequences of it. That's why you saw him immediately play these 2 Jade Spirits, as he knows he's got to get board presence. And the problem with this Wild Growth here is that when he plays Wild Growth and hangs on to excess mana, it oftentimes sends Kolento the message that he's got second Auctioneer in hand. And so what he's hoping for is that Kolento plays this a little bit softer than he normally would, hoping that the Auctioneer can get on board and force something from Kolento. So far, he's yet to force an Execute, a Sleep with the Fishes, a Brawl, anything. So to get ahead on board is going to require a massive Auctioneer turn.
What now? Out of my jungle!
Those are all really good.
He might still be eyeing the Tar Creeper as his taunt in this spot.
Tar Lord.
No, from the hand, Tar Creeper.
Oh, okay.
The choice here might mean a little bit less due to the nature of his curve. I will be curious to see how he goes forward in this because, again, Neirea just hasn't applied that much pressure so far. Kolento's at a very safe life total, but it's hard to argue against value in this spot. That's how he won his match versus Trunks, was pressure at the right time and value at the right time, and pressure indeed. He's got Tar Creeper into Sulfuros next turn. That spells trouble for Neirea. No way to fight this board effectively.
I got the best deals
Whoa.
anywhere.
What options does he have?
Guess you're right.
He's out of innervates at this point too. So those Jade Behemoths are one at a time. Ooh.
This is getting really scary for Neirea.
That's the end of the large chains of draws that will be available this game.
His engine is gone. He's got double nourish left, but he can't reload with that huge board once his current board is cleared. Can't go for that big Auctioneer, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, Jade Idol.
This Neirea's just going to value trade. Board tension's very real here, though. It's difficult to even consider Brawl in this spot. Kolento's got 14 health and 10 power on board. But the amount of damage that he's delivered thus far is just a very real threat. And so I'm not sure that Sulfuros actually hits this turn. But it might. He's got a clean attack over the Auctioneer with the 6/6. Safe life total.
He's going for it.
Hard to turn that down. Yeah, if he wants a shot to the minion right now, this is really one of the turns where he has the opportunity to simply play for value and go from there. And I think wise to use the slam and face to trade this off so that he can continue to apply that pressure. The combat for Neirea is lining up very poorly right now. So take that minion damage while he can. Use his life total as a resource. I thought he was out of innervates for some reason.
He only used one.
You're right.
I didn't know for sure.
Wow, well that does change things quite a bit.
But if he goes Jade Behemoth, Innervate Jade Behemoth, Brawl is a near guaranteed win.
That's the benefit of all that damage Kolento was able to push. In this spot earlier, though, Neirea was facing down mage, very low on life total. He decided that taking care of his health was a very important facet, and that's exactly what he's thinking about right now.
Wisely gained some health here, but
I think Kolento's hand's just too strong.
yeah, completed the quest in good enough time. Neirea missed his early windows for ramp, for minions, for Jade generation. No auctioneers left. Can't go for the infinite Jades. And Kolento's still got all of his utility.
And this was the lack of ramp and the lack of significant card draw early on for Neirea. It led to this state where Kolento could play somewhat of the alternate game plan of this deck, which is just value. That's one of the big benefits, is when you find yourself in a fairly even situation, you get to just push that button, and usually it hits a minion in a state like this, but hitting face, that's going to change this a bit.
I mean, I'll take it. Running out of time, though.
You thought the Jades were big. And Direhorn's awfully big. I can play, though. Yeah. I figured it was Matriarch, the way that he was playing this. Very little card draw. One Jade thing left. Haven't seen a brawl. Haven't seen an execute. Yikes. Finally takes the board. But at what cost?
Yeah, at a cost of probably his life. He does still have a few Jade Idols left in his deck. But again, Neirea will be at a point where he'll have to shuffle Jade Idols in order to guarantee he's got minion pressure for the rest of the game. He has to like shuffle Jade Idols and then Nourish, which is going to require multiple draws, which is going to be really tough to come by. Curator does give him some value, but what does he have, a Primordial Drake left in his deck?
That's about it. Yeah, the Lone Hungry Crab meant to service as the anti-paladin tech. There's no use here. And Kolento, he's going for the big win on the brawl. Plays the Stonehill first. Nails it! And Neirea, down to 4, is in heaps of trouble.
Everything is going Neirea's way. Absolutely everything.
Kolento, that is.
Yeah. Kolento's way.
Nothing is going Neirea's
Nothing
way.
is going Neirea's way. There you go. I was wondering why you're giving me that confusing look. That one. What do you even do here as Neirea?
Hope.
Hope on what? Hope that he doesn't have a single piece of removal left in his hand?
You're hoping that Brawl is the last card. You're hoping that Execute is the next 2.
He's only got 8 cards left in his deck. The likelihood that he doesn't have a way to deal with this board is very low. And then Neirea, I mean, you can see he's got that look on his face like, wow. I'm probably down 2-0. Gave a little shake of his head, too. Still a tough turn for Kolento. Eye of Blackpaw makes things a little bit weird. He's trying to find the best possible solution for him to win the game.
Sure about that?
Yeah, that one's a... I guess the 9-9
Yeah, it's pretty good, yeah.
Yep, isolating the 9-9. Brawl ends up working out well. It's going to be blocked by this Tar Creeper from connecting to the face.
Well, that's probably the best draw in Neirea's deck at this point. This was the only real way for him to get 2 significant minions into play, was by drawing another Jade Idol. And now, going up to 14 with a 10-10 and a 4-6, Kolento's got a Brawl left, but he just used his Execute. And that's a pretty poor draw.
See where it hits. Oh, seems good to me.
Every turn, Neirea will be at risk of dying to the hero power.
He has no armor gain left. He only has one copy of Feral Rage in his deck. It's one of the cards that he cut to make room for the slight Curator package, Curator plus Hungry Crab. He also has a Gluttonous Ooze. His deck seems to be, a little bit more tech towards, I guess, Murloc Paladin.
Yeah, the Gluttonous Ooze is good in a wide range of matchups, but we saw him use it early just because he had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
He hit a Fiery War Axe with it, so this was good enough.
Still some room for Neirea to maneuver, but there's a Brawl in hand, and basically Kolento, with Brawl, gets, at the very worst, a 50-50 to win the game every single turn.
Yep, and if he nails a minion, the exact same spot for Neirea.
Yeah.
That shot needed, I think, to connect with either Curator or the 10-10 for him to have a reasonable chance in this game.
Yeah. And here, either way, no matter what he does, his 10-10 is vulnerable to one of those Ragnarok shots. So that means there's just more targets on the board that are good for Kolento. There's one that's much better than all of the others, and that's the face, because he instantly wins the game. But in this case, essentially no matter what he hits, he's in a great spot. But we're more than likely to see the end of the game here. Kolento's going for it.
I've seen this Armor Smith in a brawl before.
There's only one outcome that could possibly happen here, Nathan. Oh, well, it didn't quite hit it.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Checkmate.
Essentially.
Whoop. Oh, I can't play them both.
But at 11-11, it's not bad.
This is insane.
Yeah.
The crowd is going ballistic right now. It's constant chatter. And even with the Sleep with the Fishes draw, Kolento can guarantee the kill on the 11-11. Hits Neirea! 2-0 lead for Kolento.
Neirea is in a world of hurt. Started on day one with 16 players. As you can see there, we are now down to 3, and we are very quickly approaching the time when we're down to just 2.
Holy waiting in the finals. But that's the man to beat.
I've seen a lot of fans over the course of these 3 days just go up to that portrait of Kolento and touch it, hoping that the Hearthstone powers will transfer through to them from that giant portrait, that giant signed portrait of Kolento.
What they don't realize is that it's going the opposite way.
He's absorbing their power.
Yeah, you remember that the Hearthstone commercial where Uther asks, "But what must we give in return?"
Everything.
Kolento's taken the everything.
I mean, to be honest, a lot of these fans here would probably gladly give up their ability to play Hearthstone in order to make Kolento win. That's the surprising part about it.
3 packs.
Every time that rag hero power goes to face, everybody in the crowd screaming, "Packs, packs, packs." But in Chinese. Here we go, game number 3. Kolento has 3 opportunities to win with Jade Druid, a deck that is incredible versus the majority of Neirea's lineup. This is the best matchup for Neirea. Quest Rogue versus Jade Druid. This one's going to be the one where Neirea can feel pretty comfortable about his chances.
I mean, you put it in perspective, though. Kolento's in a very similar situation with his Jade Druid against the Quest Warrior from Neirea, where he's got the 1 copy of Hungry Crab, the 1 copy of Feral Rage. So that extra life gain split a little bit differently.
And then there's a Jade Druid mirror. So maybe he's got some game, who knows?
Well, we've seen it before. And this opening hand from Neirea is gas. Pretty much any minion he draws that isn't a bounce minion is going to get this quest progress underway.
And Kolento was also missed ramp.
And that's an important one as well.
But he needs that one minion to start the roll. That's what he needs. I mean, at a certain point, if he keeps drawing dead, then he may just start using a bounce minion.
I've
to
seen
be
it before.
So have I, but it's a little weird.
That one piece of the puzzle that's missing. We talked about it earlier.
It's still missing on the actual puzzle.
Yeah. That teaser poster. There's just like one spot in the middle, too. It's really bothersome.
It's really bothering Neirea that he's missing his piece of the puzzle as well. We'll see what the draw is going to be. He's got to be happy about seeing another hero power pass.
Ooh. That's a good draw. The one thing Neirea has quite a bit of right now is time, and Swashbuckler's a big one. The Jade train is about to get underway, though.
Jade Blossom's going to be the play. Needs to get that mana going.
This is the second time we've seen him do this.
Yeah, just jamming it on a 1-1. Gain 2 armor. It protects it from the dagger. That's the one thing. But Patches is going to come out. I guess the armor generation really isn't that big of a deal.
Nature will make 3 5/5s once the quest is complete.
That's pretty interesting, actually. It's only a matter of time now before Neirea completes his quest, and I don't think Kolento has nearly enough gas to be able to defend against this.
That'll make 2 5/5s once the quest is complete.
So you're telling me every minion that he plays is a 5/5?
Even the Storm Guardian from White Eyes. And I don't know about you, but I'm looking at quest. That's a prep. That's a shadow step. It's a third swashbuckler. Kolento is in heaps of trouble. This is going to be a quick game number 3.
Watch it in all its glory.
It doesn't even need to prep. How sick is that? Important that Neirea coined here first as well. If he didn't coin in that spot, he would have burned the quest. He would have completed quest with 10 cards in his hand because of the Swashbuckler battle cry. I've seen that happen before. It's not pretty.
I've seen it happen on pretty big stages as well. So heads up play from Neirea. And he's going to hold on to prep. He's got Vanish. He's got Force of Nature. Prep Force of Nature next turn. Now that's cute.
This is an embarrassment of riches. And there's nothing in Kolento's deck that really offers recovery potential from this.
No.
The Jade Train was not there soon enough. You know, maybe that's what the mind control tech is for, try to steal a charge and hope you can get there. But there is just so much in Neirea's hand that keeps the gas going. But that's the troublesome spot for Kolento. There's just too much for him to deal with.
Yeah, there's also a big gaping hole in the 10 mana slot from Kolento's Jade Druid deck that we've seen this tournament allow the Jade Druid to come back from impossible situations, and that's the yogg-saron.
Prep Force.
Prep Force.
You called it. Those are just some angry treants.
Yeah.
You thought they were angry when they had Charge and Savage Roar. They are much angrier now. This is Force of Nature 2. Return of the Force of Nature. I don't know.
I've seen that movie before.
Yeah. It's the one where like the robots go nuts and try to take over, but it's treants instead. Spoiler alert, the treants win.
Kolento can steal one. And kill one. And then he's alive by 5 health unless Neirea has a charger.
That look on Kolento's face is the, can I actually win here even if I picked which cards I drew and picked which cards Neirea drew?
Nope.
Now, if he could just pick cards from the game.
Maybe. No, actually, no. He couldn't.
Mental dislocator.
I think Kolento is just thinking about the next game right now. Thinking about the mulligan strategies. Thinking about what deck to queue. Well, not thinking about what deck to queue because it's Jade Druid. Gotta win with that sucker.
Yep. Thinking about what to eat later.
All these things going through his head right now. One of the things that's not is how to win this game because it is all but over.
Ash to ash.
Yeah, that's 20.
I can see.
Game 4 coming up. And clearly a very important win for Neirea. He has to win 3 straight. Step 1 complete.
He's still got decent matchups. Not great matchups. He's got a mirror match, which is Jade Druid versus Jade Druid. And then I believe he has his own Taunt Warrior versus the Jade Druid, which is favored for Jade Druid, but we've seen it go either way many times.
Kolento's been making work of that matchup.
Kolento's beat it multiple times throughout this tournament. He beat Neirea just earlier this series. He beat Trunks in his decider match yesterday. He's shown a ton of proficiency with that deck. And waiting in the finals for the winner of this match is Hoy, coming off a 3-0 victory in his...
That's Hoy in a nutshell.
I wasn't expecting that.
I mean, he's got an intense match coming up. There's $250,000 in prize at stake this weekend. Hoy has said his goal is to win the championship. It's all about wins as a professional player.
Kappa.
Joking around and having a good time.
Not joking around, though, is Kolento and Neirea. You can see Kolento deep in thought.
2 Ukrainians. And again, dating back years when these guys' competitive career started. And I remember the first time I saw Neirea play, I just sat back and thought, this guy's one of the best.
They have a ton of similarities as well. They've both been to a world championship.
They're both going back.
They're both going back. Both from Ukraine. Both started playing Hearthstone around the same time. Both tend to favor the same type of decks. Control/combo style decks.
They're both playing the exact same druid deck. They both eat food and play Hearthstone.
Literally the same person.
That's me all right.
In the unliteral sense of the term,
Yeah.
literally.
That's how the word literally works. It no longer means what it actually means. And fire from both hands.
Wow.
Now, the major difference is that Kolento has Jade Blossom, which is an incredibly important card, but he did draw the Hungry Crab, which is an inverse important card in this matchup. Wild Growths on both sides, Jade Spirits on both sides. Buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. This game is going to be nuts.
Jade Blossom does boast a higher win rate slightly.
What about 2 of them?
2 of them, real good. Does need some card draw to back it up because Neirea found his. I can't call this one this early.
No one can. This is a Jade Druid. Whoa,
They're drawing
goodness
gas.
gracious. Sometimes it just bees that way.
It is what it ain't.
What does that mean? You know, I'm a bit surprised to not see the Wrath here.
Just wants the mana. It's hard to use Jade Blossom as you get later on in the game.
Well, he had the opportunity for Jade Blossom and Wrath. And forewent that play. I mean, I guess how important are the 1/1s and 2/2s? Not that much. Just needs to find more Jade stuff. Just needs to make sure that he's staying on pace and not falling behind. That's quite literally how you lose this matchup, is you fall behind. There is almost no recovery potential. Kolento has a copy of Mind Control Tech, but neither player has Yogg-Saron. And that's the big red emergency button for this deck in the fall behind position. Just windmill slam the Yogg button.
Tough decision from Neirea here, though. Nourish, it screams at you, but there was a nod towards a play involving Jade Idol because his play next turn is slated. It's Aya almost no matter what. And by playing Jade Idol, you just ramp your Jade slightly more, so Aya becomes a little bit more potent. You still have Nourish to reload afterwards. You just have a little bit of a bigger board before that happens. So that's why Neirea was taking his time that turn, because there was some thought process that needed to be put into that turn of how his game plan wants to be. Does he want to be the aggressor? Does he want to make sure that he has enough resources to keep this game going long?
He had to consider ramp a little bit there too, due to the nature of Kolento having the 2 Jade Blossoms versus the single Wild Growth. That mana advantage means that Kolento is accessing the full spectrum. He's going to be hitting his Auctioneers first. He's going to be the one having the big Fandral turns earlier on. The lack of that mana, sure, he's got plenty of cards, but again, when you're behind in this matchup, it is difficult to come back. So Aya probably is the tiebreaker in that situation. But boy, is Kolento drawing heat. It just feels like he's destined to win this tournament, TJ.
I mean, to be honest, they both are. Kolento maybe slightly. He hit a little bit more ramp. He's got card draw to back it up. His Jades are slightly bigger. Not really, though, because Aya's on the board. This still is one that's really hard to predict, because this turn is a little bit awkward. If he had 9 mana, he could Fandral Nourish. If he had maybe an Innervate in hand, he could start going with his first Gadgets in Auctioneer. But at the moment, he needs to pick one or the other. He can Nourish now, but then he's staring down an Aya board that he's not going to add any development to from his side.
I got the best
Wow.
deals anywhere.
Well, I didn't expect that.
Oh man, there's a lot of good draws in the deck, but also a ton of bad ones. Let's see what it is. Curator. That's one of the bad ones. At least for this turn. He was hoping for an Innervate, but didn't get it.
It's a great turn for Neirea. He just drew that Jade Blossom, swiped Jade Blossom. He's back in this game. I really expected Kolento to go for Nourish on that turn. Look for Innervate so he can apply the Fandral out there, maybe another Jade card. Just, Jade Idol would have been fine.
What to do?
It depends how much board presence that Neirea wants here. You can also go for something like Jade Idol Wrath.
Wow, I like this play a lot too.
Fandral Jade Idol Wrath.
This is the most board presence he could get from this, and that is a really important measure right now, because Kolento going into turn number 9, it means that his options to clear Fandral and make progress are much more limited. If he's going to swipe, that's 4 of his mana. That leaves him with 5 left over. That would mean no Jade Behemoth in that instance. I love this play from Neirea. I think swipe is a much harder card to use, which is why I was looking at it. But it makes so much more sense to apply the pressure and try to force the off-mana play.
Also, he sort of rounded the corner on the turn where he'd be happy to draw a 1-mana 5/5. Early on, you don't want to shuffle your Jades because you don't want to draw that Jade out. You'd rather have a different card in your deck. You'd rather have a card that helps you cycle.
But look at this.
That's so threatening of a board.
The fact that Neirea got that 1 extra minion in play meant that he could handle Fandral, and he's not really weak to anything. He's very far ahead right now. He's moving towards an Auctioneer turn with a second Earthen Scales. If he draws Innervate, if he draws Feral Rage, almost any spell he draws besides Swipe or Nourish is heat. That was fantastic setup from Neirea. Who still might be swiping.
See what the pickup is.
That looks like swipe to me.
Swipe Jade Behemoth.
That might be game over. That is a lot to come back from.
And Neirea doesn't even have a lull of draws.
And this was all on the back of Aya. The presence that Aya provided, despite the fact that Neirea was behind, was too much for Kolento to overcome.
And look at Kolento's sequence of draws. Wild Growth, Urson Scales, Jade Idol, Innervate. If he had held on to that Auctioneer for slightly longer, had nourished the turn that we saw him play the Auctioneer with one spell, he may have gotten to a point where he could chain an Auctioneer turn that drew him 6, 7 cards.
Now, he would have been a little bit more behind on presence, but
He would have.
the Fandral Wrath is what made the turn so favorable for Neirea. If he had just seen swipe, I think he might have been okay. But the Fandral Wrath, I think, was a bit much. And buckle in. This is not going to be pretty. If you're a fan of Kolento, you might want to close your eyes right now. If you're a fan of Neirea, pay close attention.
Break out the confetti. Still got multiple Jade Idols left in the deck. Still got Innervate left in the deck.
I got the best deal.
Has 2 cheap spells in his hand already. Another one.
Oh, my. Oh, my. Your Jade Idol versus the Jade Idol she tells you not to worry about.
Time waits for no one.
Doesn't even really matter that he didn't hit another big draw. That's enough of a board for my liking. And a Nourish really doesn't help him at all here. Primordial Drake really doesn't help him at all here. We might be seeing this match go to another Game 5. The 4th it would be for Kolento in this tournament. At some point you gotta think, is he just doing it for the crowd? He's not though, we know he's not. When you're up against some of the toughest opponents in the entire world, it's bound to get to the point where we're seeing some Game 5s, especially players with these close of lineups.
Oh, yeah.
One deck different.
Trying to find something, but it's just not there.
Yeah.
Time waits for no one.
Can he even survive on board is the question. Swipe 7-3, but it doesn't even matter. We're going to a Game 5.
We've seen Kolento come back from those 0-2 deficits, but now that he's 2 games ahead, turn that table around. Neirea is now 1 game away from beating his fellow Ukrainian and moving to the grand final.
It's going to come down to a matchup that Kolento knows very well.
Now, we've been seeing it from the Warrior side in his shoes, though.
But from the Druid side, I mean, when you play a matchup and you know how to beat it, you got to
Usually
know.
means you know how to play it.
It usually means you know how to play it as well.
And we heard Neirea right after his win to secure that World Championship spot. He mentioned, I made a mistake in that Warrior game. I took too long. I wasn't focused. I didn't have time to make that final play, and I messed up.
Well, let's see it. Game 5. Second semifinal. Hoy is waiting in the finals for whoever wins this match. We're guaranteed an all-year final. We're guaranteed Denmark versus Ukraine.
And take note here, Kolento threw away Innervate in this matchup. It's very important to note that he threw away Innervate in this matchup. It's not about speed. It's not about powering out a big minion and delivering damage. It's about getting to a board state that sends Neirea's game plan into a spiral downward, where Kolento can chain together turns of massive threats until Neirea no longer has an answer left. The most important card to that is Jade Idol. I'm sorry, is Jade Blossom. The second most important card to that, probably Aya Blackpaw.
He's got a good start already. Coin Jade Blossom into one of these Jade Spirits. Seems like a great plan to me. You can roll into another Jade Spirit or Nurse and then roll into Jade Behemoth. He's got the Jade generation that he needs. This is a much better start than we saw from Neirea in the opposite end of this matchup where Kolento was playing the Taunt Warrior and Neirea was playing the Jade Druid. I'd say that Neirea also has a reasonable hand, but when both decks have reasonable hands, the deck that's favored in the matchup usually comes out on top, and that's Jade Druid in this one.
That's right. And something else big to note is the throwing back of the Innervate. I really want to talk about that because players are always so reluctant to ever get rid of Innervate in their opening hand. The main function of that card is quite literally with Gadgets and Auctioneer. There's no reason to power out Gadgets and Auctioneer and hope that it lives and you chain together spells. You want it to hit the board, you want both of those Innervates to come rolling out and unleash spell after spell after spell until there's so few left that you're drawing Jade Idol after Jade Idol after Jade Idol.
It's also a nod to just ramp being so important in this matchup. He didn't have any ramp in his opening hand. Innervate's not the kind of ramp that he wants. He wants that permanent mana. And like you mentioned, wants to have those Innervates for the gas later on when he's got that Guides and Auctioneer and needs to build up as big of a board as possible.
It's crazy to think about, too. We saw Kolento throw away Fiery War Axe against the Jade Druid matchup, a card that's often thought to be one of the most important tools to Warrior.
I like digging here.
Same. He's got Alley Armorsmith. He's got an Armorsmith on board. This is a very important turn for Neirea right here because every single turn that Armorsmith sticks around, it's starting to build towards that life total where he's safe to play Sulfuras. That's such an important facet of this matchup as well because you don't want one turn of Jades hitting you in the late stage to put you at threat of dying. Being able to leverage that life total later on where some of your shots can miss, or you can use a lot of resources to try to direct those 8 damage shots to face. A lot of times that requires weapon swings.
We got a chance to look at these players' ranked place stats earlier this week, leading up to the tournament. But Kolento and Neirea tend to favor Taunt Warrior as, you know, one of the decks that they prefer on ladder, and both of them boast nearly a 70% win rate with the deck over hundreds of games. The fact that it comes down to Kolento winning this matchup earlier on, and now it comes down to Neirea having to win this matchup in game number 5, it's pretty fitting.
Look at this. No swing with the Fiery War Axe here. And I like it.
Jades are getting big, though.
And they don't look like they're going to slow down anytime soon. That's the hand that Kolento is putting together is awfully good.
A much different landscape than in game number 1. Neirea does have all the fodder he needs to complete his quest, but boy, is it heavy. At least 3 turns before he's able to do that. And right now, while he's putting a wall in the way, Kolento's minions are already on turn 8 starting to be more powerful than Neirea's.
It's not even turn 8.
Already.
Turn 6.
On turn 6.
Yeah, he's two Jade Blossoms in there. Neirea looks concerned.
As he should be.
Ooh, if he's thinking this much, his hand's got to be good. And it is. That's a great setup. Just doesn't get much better than that.
Neirea does have a lot of health to work with, but once it gets to the point where your opponent's Jades are 7/7s, 8/8s, 9/9s, 10/10s, doesn't really matter. Some fridge case scenarios where you survive with a couple health in that last Ragnarok shot, hits your opponent in the face and kills him. But he's still got a long way to go before that becomes a realistic possibility.
And you can see him think through the turns here. One of the major problems that Neirea is having is that none of these plays set up a very strong Primordial Drake. Stonehill Defender gets run over very efficiently on board right now. The Bloodhoof Brave is meeting a similar fate. When he slams that Primordial Drake, it's looking like a lot of these minions are going to stick around with 1 health.
He's running out of time.
I don't know what to take here.
He knows his play. It's guaranteed Bloodhoof Brave.
Oh my. Evangel Nurse is looking awfully good.
Yeah. Primordial Drake also had a nod because of the way the math works out on the board, but it leaves him a little bit weak to sleep with the fishes.
Oh, mama. Neirea is going to have a very tough time beating this. Kolento had the natural ramp. He's using the Nourishes to fuel his hand rather than having to use Auctioneer early on. And now he's found Auctioneer with Innervate. There's still Wild Growth in the deck for the extra draw. The Jade Idols are still there. His draw density is very high right now.
Trying to decide the best way to do this combat map. And I believe he's found the optimal way to do it.
And Vandrel lives.
Neirea still 2 turns away from Primordial Drake sleep with the fishes.
Well, that, it's close, but
I mean, it clears the board. He could have a fully clear board here, but his only development then is a 3/3. He armors up at the end. He's still 2 taunts away from the quest. He can't complete it next turn unless he picks up a cheap taunt in his deck.
I think if that's the case, he's got to leave the Vandrel alive. Sleep with the fishes, attack over the 5/1, set the Dire Horn, and say go.
And he completes the quest next turn.
Now,
And hopefully can add into removal after that.
the quest progress is really the big one for me too, where if he goes with Sleep with the Fishes alongside Ravaging Ghoul, it doesn't actually make any quest progress. Say he draws a cheap taunt on the following turn, maybe that Sulfuros gets online. I mean, his health his health total is far enough ahead that he could realistically race Kolento.
Is a big decision point, and I'd like going with the taunt. I'd like making that quest progress because his advancement in this game does not depend on him protecting his life total. Wow. Wow. Neirea does not have a copy of Brawl. Kolento can, with Vandrel on the board, he shuffles and he develops the Jade Idol. If he's able to use the Innervate and the Earthen Scales to pick up more Jade Idols, Neirea is going to get muscled out of this game.
Wild Growth as well. The ideal situation for Kolento. Now his draw is a little bit less so thus far, but he's got plenty more.
Another Innervate. Wow! Neirea is slowly watching his hopes of winning this game slip away.
He's not coming back.
No, there is absolutely no way. Brawl would be the perfect draw, and even then, Kolento's got resources to back it up. How about another?
He doesn't even have time to play all his cards. He's running out of time. He started drawing as soon as the turn got underway. Barely gets it in.
Ravaging Ghoul, sleep with the fishes, sleep with the fishes. Does clear the board.
That is not good enough, unfortunately.
No.
If you're Neirea.
You're looking at a hand full of big boys. If you're Neirea, and if you use that removal, what else do you have?
What choice does he have?
I suppose.
Good luck, little Ravaging Ghoul.
Godspeed, buddy.
Neirea just puts his hand behind his head. Where did this go wrong?
The deck is just almost all Jade Idols at this point.
He's got like 36 of them in there, so it's not really a surprise if he draws one at this stage. Now, if Neirea draws something crazy like back-to-back brawls and wins them both, that is a chance to win this game.
I don't know.
In my opinion, that Hungry Crab is a victory in a brawl scenario. I think if Neirea draws brawl in this spot, and either the 3-3 or the 1-2 lives, he gets to set the Direhorn Hatchling and giddy up afterwards. I think that dream is now dead.
Quest finally complete, but it feels like it's quite a bit too late.
Whoa. That is a miss. And that's what Kolento was planning with his Hungry Crab, was to have more fodder on board. That was an effective miss on that quest completion.
Aya Blackpaw.
And that'll shut down a lot of that brawl potential. And that's if Neirea draws brawl.
Two copies in the deck, 16 cards left remaining.
And it's got to be now. If he doesn't draw brawl, he's just dead.
A 1-8 to stay alive.
Doesn't sound good to me.
Don't like those odds very much.
Oh, he's not playing Aya.
There's a tiny shred of hope. Minuscule.
Now there's two spots on board where brawl is a victory for Neirea. But even in the face of that, the reload from Kolento is insane.
And that looks like it's going to be it.
From the Winter Championship through the spring season to a World Championship berth to Game 5 against quite possibly the best to ever play the game. And it's been masterclass performance from Kolento.
But he still has one more left to do it, as Kolento is now moving on to face Hoy in the finals. What a story.
People asked where he was in 2016. A lot of quick tournament exits, but a lot of strong ladder finishes during that year. Ladies and gentlemen, Kolento is back. Celebrate your packs, because you just got another.
And here is the final bracket as it's all set up. Hoy and Neirea Kolento got those World Championship berths, but it's only Hoy and Kolento that stand atop the mountain at the end of the day. Only one can become champion, but for now, let's head over on stage with a few words with Kolento.
All right, everyone, congratulations to Kolento! 再次恭喜 K 神。 And also, I'd like to thank you so much for all the packs you have won for us. I believe that, yeah, so many people vote for you. 我相信大家投了 Kolento 票的人举一下手好吗？ K 神获得卡包的哈 These are all the fans who vote for you. You need to really thank him, right? You want to say anything to them?
You know, guys, you won much more than I did by voting for me. I think if you will apply amount of packs all of you will get, it will be so much money. Lucky you.
Alright， 他说特别感谢大家支持他啊，当然如果你要把所有的卡包算到一块儿，再换算成钱的话，还是不少钱的哈，所以大家也欠 K 神钱了。